Hello everyone, my name is Finn, and in this short video I'm going to show you how to 3D model and texture a simple eye. Let's get started. First, we are going to take our cube and we're going to delete it by pressing the delete key on our keyboard or by right-clicking and pressing delete. Now you're going to want to go to Add, Mesh, UV Sphere, and then before clicking on anything, there's going to be this menu down here. It's going to be closed. Add UV sphere. You're going to want to click on it. And since we don't want to start off with too many sides, since this is just going to be a simple eye, we want to change this 32 and we want to cut it in half to 16. So now it is 16 segments by 16 rings. Now you're going to want to click it, make sure it's selected, click the buttons R, X, 90, and then press enter. And we are going to make sure that we are looking at our front view by pressing 1 on our number pad or by pressing the accent key and going to front. Before we continue, I wanted to show you the two different parts of the eye that we are going to be 3D modeling. The cornea, the outer part where at the front of it, it starts to bulge a little bit there, and the inner part, the pupil. The reason I'm showing you that is because I'm about to duplicate a sphere into two spheres to create both parts, and I'm going to show you now how to do that. Let's select our eye, press Shift D, and now you'll see if you move your mouse away that you've duplicated your sphere there. Go ahead and right click to let it go back to where it was. It's still there, it's just in the center with the first one. Let's go ahead and rename this cornea. We'll rename this sphere, the inner one, pupil. Then we are going to right click on this space here and then click New Collection. Double click that and then name it Eye. Click Pupil and then Control click the cornea object up here and then drag it to the Eye collection, and now you have that better organized. Now we're going to want to click on our cornea. Let's hide our pupil object in the viewport by pressing this eye icon right here. It is no longer there. And now we can work with the cornea. And then press S and then just very slightly scale it up. Next thing I want you to do is press Z and hold it, and then go over here to Wireframe. This is one of the different shading methods to display objects in Blender. Release Z while you're hovered over that, and you'll be able to see the bare bones, all of the edges, faces of this sphere. Now I'm going to click to unhide the pupil, and you can see it sitting in there. Now it's going to be very hard to select the different parts of this the way it is right now. So if you want to come over here next to our scene collection, over to the filter button, click that, and then I want you to press this arrow key right here and toggle it on. This is the selectable restriction toggle, and what happens is that makes it appear over on this side so that you can actually click pupil and unselect that. That makes it impossible for you to select that now. Now we can press 1 and we'll be able to look and press S to scale and drag down the closest we can get. It's okay to leave a little bit of space, but we just want to get as close as we can. That looks about right. Now I'm going to hide the pupil once again, because we are going to start modeling the shape. Now I'm going to press Z and go back to solid. That gives us the 3D view shader we had before. And that is just for our benefit. You are not actually changing it to a different object when you do that. You are just viewing it differently. These options are also up here to your top right. You have two more, material preview and rendering, which is the one that you'll be using the most besides solid and wireframe. Go ahead and hide the cornea, and then make sure that your pupil is selectable again. We are going to click on your object and press Tab to enter edit mode, and then deselect that. Then I want you to go to front view, press 1, and then with this face select tool selected, press C, and that's going to bring up your circle select. To exit that at any time, you just want to right click, and then to enter that, you press C again. We are just going to select these two layers here, and then I'm going to change it to the vertex select again, so that we are selecting the vertexes. And now what I want you to do is press Shift S, and we are going to say cursor to selected and release Shift S. And now, as you can see, that moved that cursor over to the middle of that selection. Now you want to click this button up here, the transform pivot point, and you want to make sure that it is on 3D cursor. That will allow us to transform based on 3D cursor as our pivot point. Now we want to press S, Y. And it is going to bring that out like that. And then click on your move tool. Press 3 to enter your side view. And then drag that back slightly. There you go. Now I want you to press face select again. Click C. And then select this space. Right click to deselect that. And then press E. Right click. And make sure your move tool is selected. And just drag that green arrow so that that is back. Just like that. Next, you want to press S to scale that down. And that is the better shape of the pupil. Now that you've created the pupil, press Tab to exit edit mode. Go to Object with the object selected, our pupil selected, and click Shade Smooth. There you go. And that is what our pupil looks like for now. Now let's unhide the cornea and make sure that our pupil cannot be selected by disabling selection. For this step, I'm going to want to create another view for myself because I find it easier when I can look at two different 3D views when doing this next step. Go over here, hover at this corner with your cursor until you see a crosshair, and then click and drag yourself another screen. Then for this viewport, go ahead and hover your mouse onto the right, click Z, and then click Wireframe. Now I'm going to primarily work in this side. Oof. Since I'm primarily working in this view, I made it bigger. I'm going to hover over onto this side and click Z Wireframe. All right, now we're ready to shape the cornea. Go ahead and click the object on this view here, the bigger one, and then press Tab to enter edit mode. Deselect the object, press C, select your faces, and then right click to exit circle select. And then I want you to click vertex select. And since our 3D cursor is still right there, and our transform is still working off of the pivot point of our 3D cursor, we are going to press S, Y, but instead of going inward, we are going to go outward slightly. Now, I just want to make sure on this side that it's not too much, because there is a way to go a little overboard on that. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit, do a little bit of tweaking, press S, Z, or excuse me, press S, Y, make it a little more small of a make it a little more scaled down. There we go. And now the last thing you want to do is just guarantee before moving on that nothing is poking through, none of the mesh inside is poking through the other mesh. If I deselect and select hide in viewport over here, nothing should be crazy different over on this side, because nothing is sticking out onto the outside of the mesh. Now I want to get rid of my second view by clicking here. To get rid of your second view, put your mouse right over here, your cursor, click, and then go diagonally this way until you see an arrow pointing, and then release. And that should get rid of it. Press Tab to exit edit mode, and then click Object and Shade Smooth. Now I'm going to show you how to cut this mesh so that we can have an image that we can draw on for a texture. And you'll know what I mean more by that in a second. Let's go over to these tabs up here and click UV editing. And then you want to make sure that your cornea object is not viewable. You want to hide it in viewport because we are not going to worry about cutting that one. Select your pupil. Make sure your pupil is selected and tab into edit mode. And then turn to the back of it. We are going to want to go into edge mode here, edge select, click that, or press 2 on your keyboard. And then press the accent key and then go to the back view. This will allow us to see more clearly when we're cutting the back of this. Click this edge here, and then I want you to hold Control and click this edge down here. That is going to select the entire edge from there to there. Now go up here and click the UV tab and then press Mark Seam. Once you click that, if you deselect, you'll see that turned that red. We are going to want to do that on the other side now. click this edge here, and then press Control and select this edge here. And then you're going to want to do the same thing, UV, and mark seam. Very good. Now, what you want to do is press L while your mouse is over this object and look over on this side. This is the default unwrapped UV shell, which means this circle, when you open it up, it looks like this. If you were to cut the circle in half and spread it open, it would look like this laid out. Now, with that all selected and those seams marked, go to UV and then click Unwrap. Now, it looks a lot different. We unwrapped it by making sure that these are the seams that are cut. These edges here are the same as these edges here. Now that you've done that, you want to click UV and then go down here to Export UV Layout. Make sure that you're on this side of the screen. And then I'm going to export this as a PNG called pupil UV image.png on my desktop. And then I am going to open up a drawing program. For me, I open up Paint Tool Side because that is my preferred drawing program. And then I'm going to find that picture. I'm going to click Open, Desktop, and then Pupil UV Image. And as you can see, I have it right there. I'm going to name this layer UV. I'm going to give it a multiply filter, and then I'm going to add another layer and drag it under the first. Now I am only going to use a mouse to do this texture. It is very simple. I have a rough idea that this is the colored part of the eye, and then here is the pupil of the eye. So what we are going to do is we are going to go to our UV layer, press this magic wand, make sure that it is on transparency, and I'm going to select these, or no, I'm not. I'm going to go to this select pen tool, make my cursor by pressing the bracket keys, the left and right bracket keys, increase your brush, or you can do it down here. Just make sure that it is the correct size. And then click a couple times. And then move back to the texture layer. Make sure that you are drawing on that. I'm going to make this eye green. So I'm going to press my bucket tool and make that green. Then I'm going to take this and duplicate this layer, call it pupil texture, and I will call the one below it colored eye. And then I am going to make that black, and then press Control T to scale it down. Then I'm going to fit it inside of here. And press OK. And then Control D to deselect. We are not 100% sure if we put it in the correct place. I was just eyeballing it there. So I am going to deselect my UV layer, press save, and without closing side, just in case I need to make any more adjustments, I am going to go back to Blender And now we are going to go over to the shading panel. We are looking again at our pupil. You can see that this is the dented edge. Go ahead and press New, and that is going to create a material. Right now we have 2 nodes. This can be very overwhelming, so I don't want you to think too much into it other than the fact that this is our node editor space, and nodes are what help us add different texture properties to an object. If you're still a little bit confused, that's normal. Just follow along as best as you can, and I will show you a very simple way of putting a image texture onto this pupil. We've got this node here. This uses a base color to color our object. Right now it is white, and so our object is white. We want to use an image for that base color instead. Just like adding an object into object mode, press Shift A, and that is going to bring up your Add menu. Go to Texture, and then Image Texture. Click here, and then click and drag this yellow dot over to the base color. It turned black because we don't have anything open in here right now. Let's change that. Let's open and find our UV layout. All right. Now this is a mistake because I accidentally made my image transparent, and that is a very common mistake. So I am going to add a new layer, put it behind, and even though this space is white, this is just the background of size drawing canvas. So I'm going to make sure and guarantee that it is white by clicking my bucket, selecting a white color, and pressing there, and pressing Control S. Now let's try again. There we go. Look at that. There's your eye. We're not quite done. That's your texture for your pupil. Go ahead and make sure that your cornea is viewable again by clicking this eye icon. Make sure you're clicked on top of it, which you should be able to do by just clicking the mesh again since it is over the pupil object, and then press New. Now, instead of doing what I showed you on the last one, I want you to click this node here and delete it by right-clicking and pressing Delete. Then press Shift A, add a mix shader, because we are going to be mixing 2 shaders together for this one, and connect the shader to the surface node. Then we're going to press Shift A, and we are going to add a glass BSDF node and attach it to the shader. And as you can see, it's not transparent, so we want to press Shift A and add shader transparent, and we want to connect that. Right now we can't see it because the blend mode is set as opaque, and so is the shadow mode, so we are going to change opaque to alpha clip and this opaque to alpha clip. And now we have our eye. Go ahead and press F12 on your keyboard, and you'll be able to see the render